All right, all right. Welcome one, welcome all. Good to see everyone. I'm here with my good friend Eric Mathis, and we want to talk about this Victory Garden initiative he has going. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome.
All right,
Packing a
great.
little sleep. Lucky I have the Wonder drink to help me through
All,
that. So
all right, all right. Yeah, I had mine. I'm all loaded up myself. So,
yeah.
dude, it's good to see a living architecture. Yeah, it reminds me of my friend. He's calls his little organization Permasculptures. Putting together all these designs to bring forth all this yield. Why don't you tell us about what you've been doing with that a little bit?
Well, um, let me begin. Yeah. Are you asking about the Living Architecture Systems Group?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was a part of the founding of that group back in 2016. I was invited to be a part of it by Philip Beasley at the University of Waterloo. And basically, it's a global consortium of um, academics, artists, you name it, that are exploring living architecture in the digital age. So what he does is he builds these beautiful, immersive um, sculptures that move and breathe and react. So when you move when you kind of interact with the sculpture, it moves and responds to you. So they call it living architecture, and it's one of the platforms that we're using for our artificial intelligence and ethics platform that I can talk little bit about later. But my work with him was basically merging that with 20 years of my work of integrating people into soils, growing regenerative food, seeing the miracles of what happens when you get healthy food in people's guts and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, a topic we'll take a deep dive on today.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, so we're looking forward. You got a roundtable coming up. Is that this Monday coming up a week from today? We're
Yeah,
gonna
it's this
have
coming Monday. It's a national roundtable. Got some really awesome people on there. Um, um, Kelly Ryland with Glyphosate Facts, or the Glyphosate Gal. Lisa Stoke, who is a seasoned veteran in the sustainable, organic, regenerative agriculture movement. Rylan Englehart, and who was the producer of Kiss the Ground. And then we have a surprise guest that we're going to announce later on this week, who I'm super excited about. And then little old me talking about what I do. So,
That's great. I love it. Yeah, the Kiss the Ground documentary, I read over 1 billion people got to see that. And that was a great introduction for so many to, how we can solve these biggest challenges we have, just with local agriculture done responsibly, investing in our soils and, fixing our food supply and also, sequestering carbon and just doing everything we can for our local communities so we have that resilience, so that we have that sovereignty again. We've lost so much of that freedom to this overreach of the system. So yeah, looking forward to that. What what are you going to share about at the roundtable yourself?
well, the primary theme is some of this emerged kind of out of the Kennedy campaign. Some of it emerged from nonpartisan conversations that we had outside of that. Some of the partners were um, Republican, Democrats, who are kind of coming from a wide spectrum. But one thing that resonated with everybody that Kennedy kept hitting on, and what was what he called existential risks, and those are related to like chronic illness, forever wars, and all that kind of stuff. So some of those existential risks, being chronic illness, government transparency, soil depletion, and artificial intelligence. We're going to be talking about all those themes and how regenerative agriculture basically kind of weaves those together. Um, and yeah, really, really excited about the roundtable. So,
That's great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kelly Ryerson's. This glyphosate that she talks about so much is, I think a scourge on American health. we're living 5 and 6 years less than we should be. Compare our longevity to Europe's, and Monsanto, they've had to pay, or Bayer Monsanto now, they've had to pay $12 billion to just homeowners using Roundup in their lawn and gardens,
Yep.
and yet they still say it's not a carcinogen somehow. I don't know how that logic goes, but yeah, it's incredible. So everything you're talking about here is the solution to these problems. How to grow food safely. We're about the sickest country on the planet, and we got to change that. So
Yep. I mean, it's something that resonates with everybody. I mean, the transition movement that I was a part of in Central Appalachia, well, I entered the context and everything was saturated with environmentalism, shutting down mountaintop removal, climate change, all that kind of stuff. And we just basically wiped the entire slate clean, went out and talked to folks. And just by simply talking to them, we figured out what they wanted to see in their community. And 9 times out of 10, everybody was concerned about their health. And we just so happened to be in the epicenter of the chronic illness epidemic before it was even considered an epidemic in Central Appalachia. That's what the CDC calls the diabetes belt. And we framed our whole project around building a culture of health. And it led to a very, very successful movement. So I'm hoping that, sorry, somebody was calling me. I had to knock. I'm hoping that similar trends we'll see come out of this roundtable and everything is like chronic illness, our soil depletion, government transparency, and of course, the hot topic that's on everybody's mind that when I mention artificial intelligence, everybody lights up like a Christmas tree, and 9 times out of 10, or even 10 times out of 10, there's a lot of worry about that. But to back up a little bit, what you were mentioning earlier about Kelly Ryland, I didn't even realize. I serendipitously threw on this shirt as I was walking out the door going to mass, and I didn't even realize until I was getting ready to sit down for this podcast how long I have been in this movement and dealing with glyphosates and poisons within the fields, even before it was a topic then. So about 25 years ago, well, like I said, about 23 years ago, we were working with, it's called the Farm Labor Organization Committee out of North Carolina. And what was happening is a lot of the immigrant farmers, after basically fair trade agreements were established, the U.S. oversaturated the markets for agricultural crops, and Mexico, thousands upon thousands of farms collapsed. That's when you see the maculadora and all that kind of stuff emerging on the. And you saw a vast increase of immigration. Those are mainly the causal things that led up to a lot of the initial immigration issues. Americans were causing it, not the Latino population. But nonetheless, in order to help keep their family afloat, a lot of illegal immigrants started entering the United States and ending up in North Carolina. And while they were in the fields, they would be working with tobacco and various crops, predominantly tobacco, and then they would get a lot of the chemicals that were sprayed onto the fields onto their hands. And what we were organizing in North Carolina with the Union Farm Labor Organization Committee was for the rights of more washing sinks and bathrooms, because it stood, the regulations in North Carolina only required farms to provide these illegal immigrant farmers so many sinks and so many commodes. So imagine when you're coming out of the field, you're really hungry. You either wait in line to wash your hands and get all those chemicals off your hands, or you go ahead and eat that, and then you're transferring those chemicals into your bloodstream and everything. So in order and the reason why we're organizing it is a lot of the doctors that we're working with are actually tracing a lot of the causes from these chemicals back to a lot of birth defects that were occurring when that farmer would go back to their community in Mexico and and um, build their families and everything. A lot of their kids were having severe birth defects and everything. So it's kind of serendipitous to be on this call and be wearing this shirt, and it's like, wow, I guess I didn't realize that I've been working on these issues all the way back to like glyphosates and everything. So that being said, I'm very, very excited to be have Kelly Ryland on the roundtable and all the other great folks to hopefully launch this national Victory Garden movement.
Yeah, Kelly's been great. She's been working on this issue a long time. I have a similar experience. I stumbled across, an old video. I was in Iowa back in 2019, and I was talking to Andrew Yang about this issue of the glyphosate and how we gotta address it. And yeah, it's just wild, isn't it? 2018, Monsanto loses that courtroom battle. I thought right there, okay, well, we're gonna start getting this out of our food, right? And all these years later, it's getting worse every year. It's not getting better. So yeah, there's so much inaction on this. Recently there was a EPA study. EPA is captured in so many ways, but even they, were fessing up in this study that glyphosate is harming 93% of our endangered species in our country. So just another nickel in the bucket, so to speak, of what we're up against, and how toxic these chemicals are for for us and for all the living. And it's just, I mean, this stuff is registered as an antibiotic, right? What does that mean? That means anti-life. You break those words. It kills all the microbes. It's also registered as anti. Yeah, it kills just about everything green. Yet they have the nerve to tell us, it's safe for us to eat. And like you mentioned, it's the exposure. They're saying now that 75% of the rain and 75% of the air we're breathing has this antibiotic in it. And this is just, it's wild. You mentioned it's so bad to eat, without washing your hands when you've been exposed to it, but just, you know, absorbing it through our skin, it's also getting into our bloodstream. So, we are just drowning in this sort of toxicity. And it's really a 1-2 punch that we need. We need to address this and say no. We need real public servants to stand up for us. And then, like you're doing here, we need initiatives to replace the system. This system that we're in now, the so-called conventional agriculture, it's so toxic, it's so destructive, it's so exploitive, and it's increasingly fragile. And we need to get back to what's in our blood, who we've been across all of our cultures, and that's producing for ourselves, having that self-reliance. So I really
Yeah,
love the work you're doing.
along those lines, and giving Kelly Ryland props. Lisa Stoke, who's also like the veteran kind of organizer around sustainable agriculture during the Obama administration, just a seasoned veteran. Her and I were talking about what's so important about this campaign is is just that, like not only pushing back on the chemicals, but reawakening our connection to soils and food. And what the way that we're doing it is regenerative agriculture is a very, very new term. It really doesn't have a definitive definition just yet. So we have a lot of opportunities of defining what it is. I have my own take on it. Some of the large corporate interests are having their own take on it, which is causing people to shy away from it. I'm not in a word battle. I'm about like getting people into the soil, changing lives, drastically changing the type 2 diabetes, aggregate type 2 diabetes of communities, etc. So it's somewhat of a word battle, but I'm basically planting my feet in the regenerative agriculture movement. And then within that, I think one of the primary um, movements under that umbrella is what's called bionutrient food that's being spearheaded by Dan Kittredge and the Bionutrient Food Association. And why I'm such a um, adamant supporter of this is, one, I've grown the food. Two, I've researched on what it can actually do to our bodies, a lot of which I'll share during the roundtable and everything. But I just want to take you on a journey that me and Lisa were talking about. Is a part of our roundtable is launching this national plan that we're hopefully handing over to the White House, an action plan that is supported by multiple organizations on both sides of the political spectrum, and saying, like, this is what we want to do to make our country healthy from the soil up, but not really putting a lot of stock in that, hoping that, the whoever is in the White House at that time responds to it in a positive manner and starts proactively working with us. But since a lot of seasoned veterans that are a part of this movement that we're building have seen what happens when you just put all your eggs in that federal basket, me and Lisa were talking about, like, in some of our initial strategic meetings, of, well, we need to build actual systemic change that will last regardless of what the federal talking heads and representatives do or not do. And I can get into more of the granular components of that. But one of the stupid, simple things that we're doing is giving everybody what's called a Next 7 Victory Garden kit. And a part of that kit is the kit that she put together with Dan Kittredge at the Bionutrient Food Association that pulls in a lot of the practices that are promoted by, I'm forgetting his name right now, the Amish regenerative um, agricultural guru. He's been spearheading a lot of biological foliar sprays and everything. And then Bionutrient Food Association basically highlights how to add missing trace elements within the soils, build up healthy soils. And as gardeners learn how to do this with these kits and growing their own little gardens in their backyards in 2025 growing season, and this is what I'm drilling down to your point that you were making earlier, is like reacting against glyphosates because it is anti-life, it's anti-everything that makes us humans, is we're wanting to reawaken uh, a not so ancient but forgotten relationship with food. So as you're adding those trace minerals into the soil, you're doing foliar sprays that increases your nutrient density, sometimes 100 times fold, sometimes less. BFA is kind of researching that stuff right now to kind of hone in. But at the end of the day, I've grown basil, carrots, everything. Let's just say, like, a carrot that I grew on my farm 3 years ago, you would have to eat 100 of those carrots. You would have to eat one of those carrots compared to 100 carrots grown in traditional organic agriculture. And the difference that you can tell is not only when you're measuring the nutrient density via some kind of technology. Here's the key point: is when I was growing my basil and I was taking it around the chefs and everything, they immediately were like, where in the world did you get this basil? And they were getting their basil from very sophisticated organic farmers. So what we have been missing for thousands of years, and as we become more and more disconnected with regenerative agriculture, that is living systems, supportive living systems, is what we used to do in order to identify the most nutrient dense food out there is we would use our olfactory capacity to smell um, um, literally the nutrient density of various different foods. So imagine in 2025 when everybody's, hopefully hundreds of thousands of people, including you, hopefully, are planting these gardens. It's reawakening this ancient relationship that we have with those living systems. something, these tools that we haven't been using for thousands of years. You haven't been using, I haven't been using. I wasn't even aware that they existed until I started growing bionutrient food. I mean, and empowering folks to um, compare that food that they're eating with the food that they're getting from the markets and everything. So, just speaking to a little bit of what you were mentioning earlier on that anti-life component, we're also pro-life in some ways, in many
That's
ways.
great. Yeah, yeah, your root vegetables, your carrots, that's one thing I try to always get organic, because the you're eating the root, which, is gonna absorb a lot what's in that soil, and, the other day I had a carrot that was non-organic, a friend had, and I had to go check the bag, and sure enough, it was just, the conventional carrot. It had no flavor, so you talk
Yep.
about, that sense, um, yeah, just incredible, like, I I just could not believe how bland it was. It didn't taste like a carrot at all, so,
Hmm.
yeah, it's so
Yeah, I
important.
mean, you can taste the difference between. I mean, just now, anybody listening can run out and challenge them now to go and grab a conventional carrot from the store, and then run out to their farmers market, find an organic farm, and then just do a taste test challenge right there. And hopefully, we're going to like turn that dial up over 2025 with the National Victory Garden campaign.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, we've gotta get back to what's in our blood, who we are. I love this idea. It's our favorite plants and animals, giving us everything we need. And yeah, food purity, food security, and sovereignty. We can be independent from this consumerism, and we can have real freedom. So yeah, appreciate so much what you're doing. Eric, is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we convene for today?
No, just yeah. I mean, I can talk about a few of the moving parts of the roundtable that I alluded to earlier. So again, we're specific folks that are on the roundtable. They were elected because of their experience, and they volunteered for it in order to weave together these various existential issues: um, chronic illness, government transparency, artificial intelligence, soil depletion. But what we're also doing is equipping folks that participate in that with some key takeaways that what they can take action on now. And one of those is to take action on the present language that's being built into the Farm Bill, that basically would insulate or potentially insulate some of the larger um, uh, ag chemical industries from ever being sued, and some other language around that. So there's going to be available petitions that can be signed to where they can send off to their state and federal representatives. We're also going to have an opportunity to sign up and keep up to speed on what we're doing and leading up to the January launch. Um, and then the final component is we're developing a fairly comprehensive action plan that we want to hand over to the White House. And we're hopefully going to be doing that in a very, very um, interesting way. Um, a lot of exposure will potentially come with that. But we're also asking participants that want to be a part of this movement to not only grow gardens, but to actively engage in developing that action plan with us. So we're going to have some follow up listening sessions with folks that can join in and kind of key in on what we're doing and providing feedback. Um, so we're making sure that we're all ears open as we're moving into 2025 and building this campaign.
Yeah, some friends come to mind who would be great to offer some valuable input on that. I love Joel Salatin. He talks about you know, there was a small town in the Netherlands, and they started this program, and what it was they were providing chickens for I think three chickens to whatever family wanted them, and they showed that just 6 months later, they so many. so many tons of trash. I think millions were being prevented from being sent to the dump, and then this is producing eggs and self-reliance in the community. And you talk about quality nutrition there, and so just making these things cycle. This is the way to do it. I like to tell people, joking a little bit, go by your feed store, pick up some chicks, and those make great gifts. And as long as you
Yeah.
got a as long as you got a backup plan for them, I think a lot of give people the chance to fall in love. It's great. Why keep pets that don't produce anything? You can have a chicken, they can have a lot of personality themselves, and this is what we got to get back to. We got to get back to these natural ways. It's what we've done forever, and this really does.
Oh, let's break it up.
I like to solve our biggest. Yeah, I'll just repeat that. I've said I like the idea that the tastiest meals we can grow locally, solve our biggest problems, and or grow those responsibly. I like that word. You mentioned regenerative or permaculture, or what words people want to use. How about just responsibly? Poison free, and yeah, with love. So that's the way, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And w- w- one more kind of teaser is the specific area that I'll be focusing on during the talk is around artificial intelligence and ethics. Most of my work has been aligning itself with the present initiative by Pope Francis over the past 4 years around what's called the Rome Call, and they've successfully pretty much aligned um, the major world religion leaders to sign on to a global regulatory treaty for regulating unethical uses of AI, because presently it's pretty much an unregulated market, and the trajectory that we're moving is um, scary and many times often nefarious. So, what I'm going to be talking about a little bit during the roundtable and weaving everything together through regenerative agriculture is how AI can become a positive player within this movement around regenerative agriculture. Like one example is BFA uses machine learning to mine all the data that human beings wouldn't have time to do, to zero in on the patterns of what specific practices increase nutrient density of food. That's one example among a few others that I'll be talking about as well. But hopefully that'll excite some of your listeners to tune in next week. So
I love that idea. It's something I've discussed with some friends is, AI for garden design, right? So, I help with, people putting together their food forests. So figuring out, what trees should go where, and how that all can look, and making that, a little more accessible for people to get some more different ideas of how that can look based on the data we have out there of, what's already working is, it's a great idea. The thing about victory gardens, it's great to grow our veggies and everything, but yeah, if we plant some trees, some perennial, get these perennial forests going like we used to have. They're
mhm.
seeing now that the whole Amazon was kind of planted intentionally. That so many of these trees that are there that are they're providing something for the community, whether it's food or medicine or building materials or fuel. It's all done with intention. So we can get back to that and produce these legacies of abundance that get better with time, and build on themselves. And yeah, what a beautiful thing to be a part of, cultivating, and then leaving for our loved ones. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I've never thought about that. If the in the Amazon, like if anybody's ever done food forestry, when you're working within a really mature food forest, you're strategically and intentionally cutting down trees while simultaneously building in additional trees within that window. I never thought about that, and that's another key component of some of the AI stuff that we're doing with schools in terms of building STEAM curriculum, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics into the school curriculum in a systemic manner where, that will be moving forward regardless of what the federal or state bodies decide to support in 2025. And what we're doing with that is building experiential classrooms outside in the form of food forest. We're beginning with, raised beds, but beginning to layer in biology, physics, science, mathematics, art, and AI into all the layers to where the kids are no longer in front of their phone, but they're actually plugging into the soil and rebuilding their immune system and stimulating natural serotonin in their brain and all that wonderful stuff. So,
Yeah, they find that just having your hands in the soil, they find there's a correlation. You live 10
yep,
years longer, right? So yeah, the exercise, the fresh air, the sunshine, what better way to, yeah, be maximally alive and healthy and strong. So time to get back to that. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. So
yep. Well, thank you, Johnny, for everything. And thanks to all the listeners. And again, want to openly invite everybody next Monday um, to the roundtable. And will you be able to share our links and everything once we have them ready?
yeah, we'll
To
have the
Okay,
links in the comments to this people can check in on, and yeah, let's save the seeds and share them, and let's plant paradise everywhere. So thanks for coming. Great to talk to
okay.
you, Eric, and
Thank
talk
you,
again
Johnny,
soon.
so much.
All
All
right.
right,
Ciao.
peace.